In 1933, the German economy was in a state of dire distress, largely due to the aftermath of World War I and the Great Depression. The Treaty of Versailles had imposed heavy reparations on Germany, crippling its ability to recover economically. The global economic downturn of the Great Depression exacerbated Germany's problems, leading to mass unemployment, hyperinflation, and widespread poverty. The dire economic conditions presented a fertile breeding ground for the rise of the Nazi Party under the leadership of Adolf Hitler. The Nazis exploited the economic turmoil to garner support by offering promises of economic revival and stability. Hitler's rhetoric tapped into the frustrations and fears of the German people, blaming various groups such as Jews, communists, and foreigners for their economic woes. The Nazis employed several strategies to capitalize on the economic crisis. They promised to restore Germany's economy to greatness through nationalist policies, emphasizing the need for self-sufficiency and the revival of industries. Hitler's promise of creating jobs through massive public works projects, such as the construction of autobahns and rearmament, appealed to the unemployed and economically disadvantaged. Furthermore, the Nazis capitalized on the discontent with the existing political establishment, portraying themselves as the party of change and renewal. They presented Hitler as a strong leader who could rescue Germany from its economic misery and restore its former glory. As the economic situation worsened, support for the Nazi Party grew, enabling them to gain significant political power. In the 1932 elections, the Nazis became the largest party in the Reichstag, and in January 1933, Hitler was appointed Chancellor of Germany. Historians break the period 1933 to 1945 down into three phases. The first of those bring the period of recovery that lasted from 1933 to 1936. From 1933 to 1936, the Nazi Party implemented a series of economic policies aimed at achieving self-sufficiency, reducing unemployment, and preparing Germany for war. The key architects of these policies included Adolf Hitler himself, along with prominent figures such as Hjalmar Schacht, Hermann Göring, and Fritz Todt. One of the primary aims of Nazi economic policy was to address unemployment. The regime launched extensive public works programs, including the construction of infrastructure such as highways, bridges, and buildings. This initiative not only provided jobs but also bolstered Germany's industrial capacity and transportation network. Additionally, the rearmament program, led by figures like Hermann Göring, stimulated the manufacturing sector and created employment opportunities in the military industry. To achieve economic self-sufficiency and reduce reliance on foreign imports, the Nazi government introduced protectionist measures such as tariffs and trade barriers. This policy, known as autarky, aimed to strengthen domestic industries and promote economic independence. However, these measures also led to trade conflicts with other countries and hindered international cooperation. Another significant aspect of Nazi economic policy was the coordination of industry through the concept of the four-year plan, overseen by Hermann Göring. This centralized planning aimed to prioritize sectors essential for rearmament and wartime production. However, the four-year plan faced challenges in implementation, including inefficiencies, resource shortages, and conflicts between different branches of the government and industry. One of the notable figures in Nazi economic management was Hjalmar Schacht, who served as president of the Reichsbank and Minister of Economics. Schacht played a crucial role in stabilizing the currency, controlling inflation, and negotiating foreign trade agreements. However, he clashed with Hitler over economic policy and was eventually marginalized from the regime. Overall, Nazi economic policies from 1933 to 1936 achieved some successes, such as reducing unemployment and stimulating industrial growth. However, they also faced challenges and failures, including trade conflicts, inefficiencies in planning, and the prioritization of rearmament over civilian needs. Despite these shortcomings, the Nazi regime's economic policies contributed to Germany's rapid recovery from the Great Depression and its transformation into a military power in the years leading up to World War II. From 1936 to 1939, the Nazi Party under Adolf Hitler implemented a series of economic policies aimed at rearming Germany, achieving autarky economic self-sufficiency, and preparing the nation for war. These policies were largely driven by Hitler's desire to establish Germany as a dominant power in Europe and secure resources necessary for sustained military expansion. Key officials involved in economic management included Hermann Göring, Hjalmar Schacht, and Fritz Todt. One of the primary aims of Nazi economic policy during this period was rearmament. The Nazi regime prioritized military buildup, investing heavily in the expansion of the army, navy, and air force. This massive military spending stimulated the economy, reducing unemployment and fueling industrial production. By putting millions of Germans to work in the arms industry, the Nazis managed to significantly lower unemployment figures, thus boosting popular support for the regime. Another key aim was achieving economic self-sufficiency or autarky. The Nazis sought to reduce Germany's dependence on imports by increasing domestic production of essential goods such as food, fuel, and raw materials. They implemented protectionist measures including tariffs and quotas to shield domestic industries from foreign competition and stimulate domestic production. Additionally, the regime undertook initiatives to exploit Germany's own resources more efficiently, such as increasing agricultural output through the introduction of new farming techniques and policies. Despite some successes, Nazi economic policies also faced significant challenges and failures. The pursuit of autarky often proved unrealistic, as Germany lacked essential resources like oil and rubber. Efforts to substitute synthetic alternatives for these resources, such as synthetic fuel production from coal, were only partially successful and could not fully meet the nation's needs. Moreover, the rearmament drive led to budget deficits and inflation, undermining the stability of the German economy in the long run. Overall, while Nazi economic policies during this period succeeded in stimulating industrial production and reducing unemployment, they also led to significant economic imbalances and vulnerabilities that would later contribute to Germany's downfall in World War II. During the years 1939 to 1945, the Nazi Party managed the German economy with a combination of central planning, militarization, and exploitation of conquered territories. The aims of their economic policy were primarily geared towards supporting the war effort, maintaining domestic stability, and achieving self-sufficiency. One of the key policies implemented by the Nazi regime was the Four-Year Plan, initiated by Hermann Göring in 1936. The plan aimed to prepare the German economy for war by prioritizing the production of armaments, raw materials, and essential goods. It emphasized autarky, or economic self-sufficiency, to reduce Germany's dependence on imports, particularly for critical resources like oil and rubber. During this period, the Nazi economy achieved success. The Nazi regime successfully mobilized the economy for war production, rapidly expanding the armed forces and arms manufacturing capabilities. This allowed Germany to build a formidable military machine and launch aggressive campaigns across Europe. Secondly, the policies of militarization and public works projects reduced unemployment significantly, providing jobs for millions of Germans who had been unemployed during the Great Depression. Finally, there was an impressive expansion of territory. Through conquests, the Nazis gained control over resources and labor from occupied territories, which helped sustain the German war effort. Although there were some successes, the Nazi economy also showed significant limitations. For example, despite efforts to achieve self-sufficiency, Germany still faced shortages of critical resources like oil, which hampered military operations and industrial production. Also, as the war progressed and casualties mounted, labor shortages became a significant problem, particularly in crucial industries. The exploitation of forced labor from conquered territories was not sustainable in the long term and led to inefficiencies. Finally, Allied bombing campaigns inflicted heavy damage on German industrial infrastructure, disrupting production and further straining the economy. Overall, while the Nazi regime initially saw some successes in mobilizing the German economy for war, they ultimately faced significant challenges and limitations that contributed to their eventual defeat. Hjalmar Schacht played a significant role in managing the German economy during the interwar period, particularly in the years leading up to World War II. He served as president of the Reichsbank from 1923 to 1930 and then as Minister of Economics from 1934 to 1937. Schacht implemented various policies aimed at stabilizing the economy and promoting recovery following the devastation of World War I and the Great Depression. Under Schacht, there were several considerable policies. For example, Schacht's most notable achievement was stabilizing the German currency during the hyperinflation of the early 1920s. He introduced the Rentenmark, a new currency backed by mortgages on land and industry, which restored confidence in the economy and brought inflation under control. Schott also supported public works projects to stimulate economic activity and reduce unemployment. These projects included the construction of infrastructure such as roads, bridges, and public buildings, which provided jobs and helped revive the economy. Schott pursued policies aimed at achieving economic self-sufficiency, known as autarky, and reducing Germany's dependence on imported goods. He negotiated trade agreements with other countries to secure access to essential raw materials and resources. Under Schacht, the German economy witnessed success. For example, Schacht's policies contributed to a period of economic stability in Germany during the mid-1920s. The currency reforms and stabilization measures helped restore confidence in the economy and laid the groundwork for recovery. Also, public works projects initiated under Schott's leadership helped reduce unemployment levels, providing jobs for millions of Germans and stimulating economic growth. Finally, Schott supported the rearmament of the German military, which provided a boost to certain sectors of the economy, such as armaments manufacturing and heavy industry. However, the economy under Schacht experienced limitations. Despite efforts to promote economic self-sufficiency, Germany remained dependent on imported raw materials and resources, particularly oil and rubber. This dependence would later pose challenges during World War II. Schacht's policies focused on stabilizing the economy but did not address underlying structural issues. Germany experienced economic contraction again in the early 1930s, exacerbated by the global Great Depression. Schacht's close association with the Nazi regime and his role in implementing policies that facilitated rearmament and militarization have led to criticism and controversy regarding his tenure as Minister of Economics. In summary, Hjalmar Schacht managed the German economy during a turbulent period marked by economic instability and the rise of the Nazi regime. While his policies contributed to short-term successes in stabilizing the economy and reducing unemployment, they ultimately fell short of achieving long-term economic sustainability and were overshadowed by the militarization and aggressive expansionism of the Nazi regime. Hermann Göring played a significant role in managing the German economy, particularly through his leadership of the Four-Year Plan, which aimed to prepare Germany for war. Göring's management style was characterized by centralization of power and aggressive pursuit of economic self-sufficiency. Initiated in 1936, the Four-Year Plan was Göring's brainchild, aiming to rapidly expand Germany's industrial capacity and prepare the economy for war. It emphasized autarky in key sectors such as agriculture, energy, and armaments production. Göring prioritized the rearmament of Germany's military, directing significant resources towards building up the armed forces and producing weaponry. This militarization of the economy was a central component of the Four-Year Plan. Göring exercised tight control over economic decision-making, centralizing authority under his leadership. He appointed plenipotentiaries to oversee various sectors of the economy, ensuring compliance with the goals of the Four-Year Plan. Under Göring, the Nazi economy showcased some impressive gains. For example, Germany saw a significant expansion of its industrial capacity, particularly in sectors related to armaments production. The Four-Year Plan succeeded in boosting industrial output and preparing Germany for war. The emphasis on rearmament and public works projects led to a reduction in unemployment, providing jobs for millions of Germans who had been unemployed during the Great Depression. Göring's focus on militarization and armaments production contributed to the rapid expansion of Germany's military capabilities, enabling it to launch aggressive military campaigns across Europe. However, the German economy also showed signs of weakness. Despite efforts to achieve self-sufficiency, Germany faced persistent shortages of critical resources such as oil, rubber, and metals. This hindered military operations and industrial production, particularly as the war progressed. The centralization of economic power under Göring's leadership led to bureaucratic inefficiencies and corruption, as competing interests vied for control over resources and influence. Germany's industrial infrastructure, heavily concentrated in urban centers, was vulnerable to Allied bombing campaigns. The destruction of factories and transportation networks disrupted production and exacerbated resource shortages. In summary, Hermann Göring's management of the German economy was characterized by ambitious goals of achieving economic self-sufficiency and preparing for war. While his policies initially saw some successes in boosting industrial output and reducing unemployment, persistent resource shortages and inefficiencies ultimately undermined Germany's war effort. Albert Speer, appointed as Minister of Armaments and War Production in 1942, played a crucial role in managing the German economy during World War II. His policies and management strategies aimed to optimize industrial production and support the German war effort. Speer consolidated the fragmented armaments industry by centralizing production under his control. He streamlined production processes, reducing duplication and inefficiencies across various sectors. Speer also implemented labor policies to maximize efficiency and productivity. He introduced measures such as extending working hours and increasing the use of forced labor from occupied territories to alleviate labor shortages and boost production. Speer also directed resources towards critical sectors essential for the war effort, such as armaments, ammunition, and military equipment. Non-essential industries were scaled back to allocate resources more efficiently. Under Speer's leadership, German industrial output increased significantly. He implemented reforms to improve production efficiency and coordination, resulting in higher output of weaponry, vehicles, and other war materials. Speer also promoted technological advancements and innovation in the armaments industry, leading to the development of more advanced weapons and equipment. This helped maintain Germany's military capabilities despite facing resource constraints. Finally, Speer oversaw the construction of industrial facilities and infrastructure projects, such as underground factories and dispersed production sites, to protect against Allied bombing raids. These efforts helped sustain industrial output, despite intense Allied bombing campaigns. In these areas, Speer could claim success, however, his economy also showed signs of weakness. Despite Speer's efforts, Germany continued to face significant shortages of critical resources like oil, metals, and rubber. These shortages limited the production capacity and effectiveness of the German war machine. Also, Speer's reliance on forced labor from occupied territories, including concentration camp inmates and prisoners of war, resulted in widespread human rights abuses and atrocities. The use of forced labor was often inefficient and led to moral and logistical challenges. Finally, despite Speer's efforts to protect industrial infrastructure, Allied bombing campaigns inflicted heavy damage on German factories and transportation networks. The destruction disrupted production and supply chains, further exacerbating resource shortages and logistical challenges. In conclusion, Albert Speer's management of the German economy during World War II saw successes in increasing production and technological innovation, but his policies also faced challenges such as resource shortages, labor exploitation, and the impact of Allied bombing. Despite his efforts, these challenges ultimately contributed to Germany's defeat in the war.